Hello from the children of planet Earth.
Voyager's grand tour of the four giant outermost planets marks the conclusion of man's first reconnaissance of the solar system. Jupiter, 2.5 times more massive than all the other planets put together. Saturn, its rings believed to have been born out of the collisions of long-dead moons and asteroids. Uranus, its tranquil atmosphere marred by only a few observable clouds. And Neptune, so distant from the Earth that it's invisible to the naked eye. In the late summer of 1977, 2 unmanned spacecraft, Voyager 1 and 2, lifted off from Cape Canaveral atop Titan Centaur rockets. Traveling uninterrupted through interstellar space, the Voyagers will endure forever, long after everything man has ever built has crumbled into dust. In the event the spacecraft encounter alien intelligence, both Voyagers carry a copper phonograph record, a message, celebrating the sights and sounds of Earth.
And friendly wishes.
These unique discs contain photographs of everyday life, as well as voices, offering greetings in 55 languages. There are also animal noises, the music of Beethoven and Chuck Berry, a baby crying, laughter, rain, and a heartbeat. All of the planets in Voyager's path were in perfect alignment, something that occurs only once every 176 years. The spacecraft were in position to visit all 4 of the outer planets, a grand slam, an interplanetary home run. In March of 1979, nearly 2 years after launch, the Voyagers approached Jupiter, the celestial body that so fascinated Earth's first modern astronomer, Galileo. Passing through the boundary where the supersonic solar wind slams into Jupiter's magnetic field, the spacecraft's instruments recorded a strong bow shock. Named after Jove, the supreme god of Roman mythology, Jupiter is an enormous whirling sphere of turbulent gases, big enough to hold over 1,300 Earths. The Voyagers discovered thin rings of dust encircling the planet, tiny grains containing silicon or carbon, like a fine haze of ash and smoke. Jupiter's atmosphere displays a dazzling variety of alternating patterns. Cold, light-colored zones dominated by ammonia ice crystals in the higher altitudes, and warmer, dark belts of solid sulfurous particles in the lower altitudes. Voyager's cameras afforded scientists spectacular close-up views of the Great Red Spot, a storm 3 times the diameter of Earth raging in Jupiter's atmosphere. Voyager atmospheric scientist Dr. Andrew Ingersoll.
The Great Red Spot is a counterclockwise rotating storm, sort of like a hurricane, that has persisted for over 3 centuries. We were amazed that this spot could survive in the midst of all this turbulent activity.
With at least 16 known moons, Jupiter could well be considered a mini solar system. The Voyagers flew by the 4 largest, finding Callisto pockmarked by craters, Ganymede etched by icy parallel grooves, Europa smooth and icy, and Io glowing a cold and sulfurous red-orange. 9 active volcanoes were found on Io, the first observation of live volcanoes beyond Earth and Venus. These geysers were spewing hot, sulfurous gases 100 miles, high enough to hit a passing satellite. Voyager project scientist Dr. Edward Stone.
If I were to pick one discovery to represent the body of discoveries that Voyager's made, I would pick the discovery of the volcanoes on Io. These were totally unexpected and really forced us to reconsider our whole concept of the evolution of small moons which are orbiting in the outer solar system.
Pulling away from Jupiter after a joint reconnaissance of more than 6 months, the Voyagers got a healthy boost from Jupiter's orbit and made a beeline for Saturn. Mystifying man since the dawn of history, Saturn bears the name of the mythological god of the harvest, who reigned in the Golden Age. Traveling at more than 55,000 miles per hour, Voyager 1 arrived in November of 1980, only 12 miles off course after an interplanetary journey of more than 1 billion miles. Voyager's instruments found Saturn's atmosphere to be a cold ball of hydrogen and helium gases, racked by huge whirling storms and whipped by winds of up to 1,100 miles per hour. Saturn's magnificent rings, thought to have been the result of collisions between earlier moons and asteroids, consist of thousands of particles, swirling pieces of rock and ice, streaked like the grooves in a phonograph record. Voyager atmospheric scientist Dr. Andrew Ingersoll.
What Voyager discovered was the incredible structure in the rings. Saturn's rings are really composed of countless numbers of particles, ranging from the size of dust and perhaps larger particles the size of houses. These particles are constantly bumping into each other. These grooves are there because the rings are constantly being disturbed by satellites orbiting in with the smaller ring particles themselves.
As the Voyagers swept by, sunlight penetrated, backlighting and brilliantly illuminating the splendor of the rings, like the spokes of a gigantic Catherine wheel. Voyager 1 flew within 2,500 miles of the surface of Saturn's largest moon, Titan. One of only 3 moons in the solar system known to have an atmosphere, Titan may help unlock secrets to the origins of life. Voyager project scientist Dr. Edward Stone.
Certainly one of the more exciting discoveries at Saturn was the atmosphere of Titan. It's an atmosphere which is mainly nitrogen like that here on Earth, but which contains methane, so that the photochemistry going on there today may resemble very strongly that which occurred here on Earth billions of years ago before life evolved.
By swinging around Saturn, after a close-up view of Titan, Voyager 1 was propelled out of the plane of the solar system. It is now traveling toward interstellar space. JPL project manager Norman Haynes.
At this point, with Voyager 1 out of the picture and Voyager 2 capable of going the extra distance, NASA gave us the go-ahead for a grand slam, enabling Voyager 2 to explore the last 2 giants in the solar system, Uranus and Neptune.
First detected in 1781 by English astronomer Sir William Herschel, Uranus, in Greek mythology, is the name for the heavens. 5 years and almost 1 billion miles after leaving Saturn, Voyager 2 reached Uranus in January of 1986. Like all the other planets, Uranus spins like a top, but tipped over on its side. Strangely tilted and off-center, Uranus's magnetic field extends in a bizarre corkscrew tail millions of miles into space. Its magnetic poles are also wildly askew. Voyager 2 discovered 2 new rings. Dark, narrow, thin bands of ice, rock, and dust with particles the size of a fist. Although Voyager 2 discovered 10 new Uranian moons, the most eagerly anticipated event was the close encounter with Miranda, one of the most bizarre moons in our solar system. Close-ups of Miranda revealed a strange and wondrous landscape, including a canyon 12 miles deep. Miranda may have collided with another moon, shattered, and then by the force of its own gravity slowly reassembled itself into this chunk of rock and ice. These digitized photographs are a silent testament to the violent origins of our solar system. Approaching Neptune, after 12 years on the road and another billion miles, Voyager 2 was an exhausted traveler. By August of 1989, Voyager 2 was speeding more than 40,000 miles per hour toward its rendezvous with Neptune, the last stop on its spectacular grand tour of the 4 outer planets. Discovered in 1846, Neptune was named after the mythical Roman god of the sea. The planet appears blue because its methane absorbs most of the red in the spectrum, leaving mostly green and blue. Voyager 2 flew by Neptune only 22 miles off its charted course, and only 1 second off its scheduled flyby time. Skimming only 3,000 miles over the planet's north pole, Voyager found Neptune to be a giant ball of melted rock and ice, cloaked in hydrogen, helium, and methane gases, its atmosphere whipped by winds of up to 700 miles per hour. Voyager flew the closest that any spacecraft has come to one of the outer planets, discovering at least 4 complete rings of ice and rock, 6 new moons, and a great dark spot, a hurricane the size of Earth raging in Neptune's southern hemisphere. Dr. Andrew Ingersoll.
The storm revolves around the planet every 18 hours, and then it rotates around its own axis like a big glob of pizza dough every 16 days.
Largest of Neptune's 8 moons, Triton orbits in an opposite rotation from the planet. Triton was once probably an independent object in orbit around the Sun, until it collided with a moon and was captured by Neptune's gravity. Pockmarked by impact craters and glazed pink by a radiation blitz of methane and nitrogen ices and atmosphere, Triton is the coldest known object in the solar system and one of the most reflective. Utilizing Voyager's digitized photographs of this icy moon, scientists saw jagged mountains, high cliffs, and frozen lakes. The most bizarre discovery on Triton was the presence of icy geysers, some of which are still active, spewing organic particles 100 miles downwind. Dr. Edward Stone.
The Voyager mission to the outer planets has certainly been a journey of a lifetime. Having encountered Triton as the last world we would visit, I don't see how any of the scientists could have been happier.
The success of the Voyager mission concludes man's first reconnaissance of his solar system. Voyager 1 is now heading toward the constellation Hercules. Voyager 2 has set its course for southwest of the constellation Sagittarius. Traveling at 10 miles per second, it is expected to pass 4 light years from Sirius, the brightest star in the heavens, 290,000 years from now. Of the 100 billion stars in the Milky Way galaxy, we barely know one, the Sun and the planets of our solar system. Yet now, courtesy of the Voyagers, we've come to know many strange and wondrous worlds. The cold volcanoes of Io, the tortured terrain of Miranda, the dazzling rings of Saturn, and the icy grandeur of Triton. These alien worlds of sub-zero temperatures, noxious gases, icy volcanoes, and multiple moons are vastly different from our own. Yet they are in many ways the same. We share the same sun. We obey the same physical laws. Yet we are unique. Our planet is the only one we know of that supports life. Voyager's breathtaking views of these other worlds have only made us more keenly aware of our own. Earth is not just another planet. It's ours. It's our home. Perhaps the legacy of Voyager, and all our interplanetary spacecraft, is best expressed in the words of the poet T.S. Eliot. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time.
As the Secretary General of the United Nations, I send greetings on behalf of the people of our planet.
Hello from the children of planet Earth.
Bonjour tout le monde. Mae Lagnia.
Shalom. Hola y saludos a todos. Selamat malam hadirin sekalian.
Konnichiwa. O genki desu ka?
धरती के वासियों की ओर से